Welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Sendapedaratna. Grab your favorite drink, get yourself a snack, and we will get started. Today I have peach Earl Grey that I got in Japan, and I have been drinking this very sparingly because I'm not going back to Japan to get any more. So let's just be real, that's not happening. And I have my ultimate travel fun snack, which is chili cheese burritos. I only crave these when I'm traveling. I've actually bought them just for trips and then I bring them home and never eat them. So I really very rarely eat them at home. But they're super good with the cherry Coke, but I don't have that today. So let's get real. I want to talk about Christmas. Yes, I said it. It has been said. It is November, and you're going, Jenny, what are you doing? But I want to talk about Christmas decorations just in general because I today was on a walk and I was walking around the trailer court because that's what I do. And I looked around and it was still all fall. Like everything is fall. There's still Halloween decorations out. The trees are still full of fall colors, like the whole thing. And I was going, I am super stressed about Christmas decorations. Now, I'm going to break it down for you because I love to decorate my home for the holidays. Like any holiday, pick it. Other than the 4th of July, I'm not a really big fan of that. Like, not that it's not a great holiday, it's just not a decorating holiday. Let's just put it that way. And so I actually grew up in a home that my mom was a decorating genius. Like, she ran a thing called the Silk Treehouse. She made silk plants. Her and her friend, they owned this company together and they would have like parties and sell stuff and they'd do weddings. And I mean, I remember the hours and hours and hours she would spend with silk flowers making arrangements. So can you imagine how beautiful our house was every season of the year? It really was. She would decorate for every holiday, even holidays that you're like, what are you decorating for St. Patrick's Day? We're not Irish, but it didn't matter. Valentine's, Easter, St. Patrick's Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, like any holiday you could decorate for, my mom did. In fact, I remember when I was little, she had these little Christmas ducks and a bird, and they were something I think she decorated at like a ceramic shop, and it had like a hole in the middle, and she put grass, and then she'd put little jelly beans inside of them, and I would eat the jelly beans, and then she'd come back and they'd be gone, and then she'd fill them again. I loved those decorations. So there are decorations that are just so meaningful to me that my mom used to put out all the time. And so I decided that was something that I wanted to do. When I got married, I really wanted to change the house for the seasons. And so our first year, we made no money. We had been married for less than a year when Christmas came around. We were married 3 days after Christmas, so we were almost at 1 year. And we were in a small little town making $600 a month. And we had no money. It was just really kind of sad. And this lady, I remember very vividly, the church decided to get us Christmas decorations because we didn't have anything. And so they had come to our house for an event or something. And they're like, why aren't you decorating for Christmas? And I was like, because we have no Christmas decorations. And they're like, what is we didn't have a tree, we had nothing. It was really sad. And so they brought over these decorations, this mom of 8 kids. I remember going, 8 kids? Holy smokes. Now I'm going, 8 kids? Oh, wow, that's still a lot of kids. But she came over and she gave me decorations that I actually still have a few from that church to this day, because it reminds me of how far God has brought us and the things that God has supplied along the way. Those things that you don't think really are super important, but you look back and go, that made my first Christmas. Our house was really weirdly decorated, but we did get to decorate for Christmas, and so that was really very neat. And so I still have a couple of those just to remember God's goodness in our lives. But it became something that was really important to me, decorating for Christmas. And so I was actually on this walk and I was feeling the guilt of should I decorate, should I not decorate? Now, that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you, but I'm having book club over this week. And I love my book club. It is one of my favorite things that I ever stepped out in faith to do. And it seems really odd, but I said, hey, anybody can come to this book club. And I got to tell you, some of the best people came out and we've been meeting. I think this is our 3rd November that we've met. Is that right? Could that be right? Or 2nd November? It's got to be our 3rd. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And we drink tea, have snacks, and we talk about murder mysteries. It is just so fun. And I was like, they're coming. Should I have my house decorated for Christmas or should I have it decorated for fall? I don't know. That feels really stressful because everyone seems to be putting up their Christmas trees on social media. November 1st, poof, it's Christmas. Poof, everybody's got Christmas stuff out. Should I be doing that? And I just got really overwhelmed, really stressed out, and really overwhelmed about whether I should change my house and change everything to Christmas. Now, I realize that you're like, Jenny, that really isn't that big of a deal. But if you think about it, we do this in so many areas of our lives, it's kind of ridiculous. We spend most of our lives letting other people write our priorities for us. Whew. And I'm saying good, bad, and sometimes even better. Like when you're working at a job, your boss tells you what your priorities are in that job. They say, this is more important than that. This, like it's important to know what the priorities of your boss is. Like that is just something that's really important. When you get married, all of a sudden the priorities of your husband and you have to be worked out. When you are going to a church, churches have different priorities. They want you to volunteer. They want you to go to missions trips. They want you to be involved in a small group. They want you to tithe. They want you to do all these things. All are very important. But you are the one that have to make your own priorities. Now, I remember about probably 12 years ago, and I think I've talked about this on this podcast, but it was a couple years ago. So here you are. You're maybe a new listener, and now if you're not, you get to hear it again. About 12 years ago, my daughter was 6 years old. We took a trip across from Minnesota all the way to Maine and then up into Canada and then back down and back to Minnesota. Like it was a huge road trip. I think I probably should have flown that instead, but that's okay. We didn't. It was a cheaper way to do it. We stopped on the way. We had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch every day because we didn't want to eat out because our priority was to save money. But I remember on that trip, my husband had this great idea. We were in the mountains. We were driving through Maine or Vermont. I'm not sure which state. It was Maine, Vermont, or New Hampshire. And we're in the mountains just driving around. We went to go see a waterfall that day. I was actually on a phone call with someone from work that was taking over for me. And they had problems and I had cell connections. It was like a whole thing. Anyway, my husband was like, I want us to work on our family priorities. And I'm like, what do you mean our family priorities? Like get up in the morning, go through the day, go to bed. Like what do you mean family priorities? And he was like, I want to know what we want to do as a family and what works for us. And I was like, this was a novel concept to me that not everybody, that I didn't have to live up to everyone else's priorities or everybody else's expectations. Like that was just, if someone said this is something that needs to be important to you, I made it important to me. Now I realize I'm a rule follower. That is just kind of who I am. And so someone puts up a rule and says you need to drink 100 ounces of water. I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. That's just the way things are going to be. my own priorities. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. And one of the things on that, there are two things that I vividly remember from that trip. One was we wanted to make scripture a really big part of our lives and of our daughter's lives. We wanted scripture to be alive and active in our home. And we were really intentional about it. One of the things, I have a chalkboard in our hallway, and it used to be a weekly Bible verse when my daughter was little, and I would say the Bible verse, and then, every time we were going by, I'd mention the Bible verse or whatever, and now it's a seasonal Bible verse. So it could be up there for 3 months, it could be up there for 2 weeks, it could be there for 6 years, I don't know, but it's a seasonal Bible verse, and it's really what I feel like we're walking through at the season. And just kind of like, this is the Bible verse that I want us to memorize and look at and remember God's faithfulness in whatever we're walking through. And so I have that up. We have scripture verses up all over the house. Memorization has been a big part of my daughter's childhood and of how we did things. We had songs that played scripture. Like, scripture became a very big part of who we are. My husband and daughter will sit, before she left for college, they would sit and she would read a scripture in the morning and come out, and they would have a philosophical discussion or theological, about that verse and the Greek and the Hebrew and where it came from and the context and how it related to Jesus and the whole thing. Scripture became a priority in our home because of that trip. The other thing we said is we wanted to be people that traveled. And now I just got done telling you, on that trip, we were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We'd go to Aldi's and buy the mini bags of chips that you got 24 in a thing. And we'd have a mini bag of chips, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I think we had a Little Debbie maybe every meal, maybe not. I don't know if we even could do that. I don't know I think the Little Debbie was once a day. Anyway, so we were cheap. We were not making much money. I think I was still part-time at my job. Kevin was part-time with Christ Connection. It was the whole thing. And so saying that we wanted to make traveling a priority, I was like, that's just not possible. Where are we going to come up with this money? And my husband was like, it's not about the money. It's about what do we want to do? And now that's what we do for a living. We travel for a living. And sometimes I'm going, was that a good plan? What were we thinking when we said traveling would be fun? No, it's fun. It's really actually very good. But it was very interesting, the metamorphosis that happened in my head when I realized I could make my own priorities. When no one has to dictate what your priorities are. And I just wanted to encourage you today as I'm talking, what are your priorities that have become a priority because someone else told you they were supposed to be? Or that you've chosen, right? There's a big difference. And so when I was thinking about Christmas today, as I was on my walk, I realized that, you know what? I love my fall decorations. I'm going to keep them up. Yes, I'm feeling pressure to put up my Christmas decorations. And do I love them? Absolutely. But I don't have to put them up. I don't have to be like everybody else. I can keep my fall stuff up and enjoy it for a couple more weeks. Will it be a lot of weeks? Probably not. But at least another week I'll keep them up. And those who put their Christmas stuff up, that's great because they chose that. It's not life or death who does Christmas when and when they start decorating their Christmas trees and their houses. I started doing Christmas shopping probably 2 weeks ago because I know that I get busy in December and then I'm stressed out if I don't have a lot of the stuff put together. So that's my priority. It doesn't have to be everybody else's. Your life does not need to look like other people's for it to be successful for you. And I think that that's the hardest thing to come to in life, is when you realize that when you look at my life does not look like anyone else I know. I wish I could go to a pastor's wives event and sit in a room with a bunch of people that did the same thing I do, and they would understand what I'm walking through, but I don't. People don't understand what it's like to walk into a church every week and be a complete stranger and be alone every single week in a strange environment and really people know who you are, but you don't know anyone else. Like, it's very difficult. And so when you're making your priorities, I just ask you to go back to the Lord and say, Lord, these are the things that I've been doing because they're quote unquote important to me, but are they? Have they been dictated by other people? Have they been dictated by your word? Yes, then they are my priority, but have they been dictated by someone else that said it was important, but maybe it's really not? Maybe it's okay to take life and go, I want to make it the best for me, not for anybody else. What is a good priority for you to start working on in 2025, 2026? Well, that's all I have for you this week. I just hope that you just decide that you are a priority, that you are important, and your feelings and your thoughts are valuable, and figure out what priorities you want for your own life, not dictated by other people, but dictated by what you and God say to do. Well, you can find me at Real Life with Jenny on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also support this podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/Real Life with Jenny. I appreciate all who give there. It is just an amazing way to pour back into this ministry, and I really appreciate that. You can also go to christconnection.cc/Jenny. All of my info is there. Would love to connect with you in any way that you'd like. We're booking right now in 2026. Spring is getting a little full, but we're looking at summer and fall if you're looking for a women's event. So we can maybe squeeze one in there, matters on the week, for a women's event, but get it on the calendar soon if you want it in 2026. But really, what are your priorities? What is important to you and important to God? And I just ask you to maybe, as we're making goals for 2026 and we're looking ahead and, we're getting ready for Christmas, what's important to you? Not what your neighbor's doing, not what everybody on social media is doing, but what is important to you? And I just pray that the Lord would just give you the strength to follow your priorities. You have a great week.